Parker has entered the plea of not guilty, and we are now ready for opening statements. Would the counsel like to give an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Please approach.
On January 6th of 2023, at Richneck Elementary here in Newport News, there was one and only one person who had both the authority to take action in a crisis and the knowledge that a crisis was underway. My name is Josh Jenkins. I am the Commonwealth's attorney assigned to prosecute this case. I'm assisted by my paralegal at counsel table, Megan May. And I thank all of you, as the judge has said, for your service. I know it is inconvenient to be a juror, but this case is important to all involved. And I thank you for doing your duty, and I know that you will. On January 6th of 2023, parents of children who went to Richneck Elementary and the children themselves woke up to a normal day. They packed lunches, got on the school bus, got in their cars. One walked to school that you'll hear from. And to them, nothing was different that day. And as the parents watched their children, backpacks in tow, walk into that building, those parents entrusted the care of those children to that school. They had a promise that when I bring my child into school, the school will keep them safe. But the evidence will show you that that's not exactly what happened. I understand, and perhaps you understand, that in this incident a teacher was shot. That is a horrific tragedy, and I do feel for Miss Zwerner. But this case is not about Miss Zwerner. This case is about the children who lived through this event in Miss Zwerner's classroom, 20 of them. That's what this case is about. You will hear from that teacher because she witnessed the events, but she is a witness. The victim of this crime are the children. The defendant, Dr. Ebony Parker, was the assistant principal at Richneck Elementary at the time. She was the person who was paid to take care of those children. And around 11:40 a.m., Ms. Zwerner had seen a particular child who you will learn has a long history. A long history of discipline issues of which Dr. Parker was already aware well before January 6th of 2023. But Ms. Zwerner observed something about this student that worried her. You're going to hear from her, and you're going to hear what that concern was. And then she's going to tell you that she went to Dr. Parker and warned her that this child, who we refer to as JT, was in a violent mood. You'll hear that she said, "I don't know what I'm going to do if he hits me." That is the knowledge that Dr. Parker had of the history of JT, that and more. But at 11:45 a.m., Ms. Zwerner walks in, tells Dr. Parker that JT is in a violent mood, and Dr. Parker does not respond to her, stares at her blankly for just a moment, and then returns to her work in her office. The warning ignored. You're going to hear that this child's past means that no warning should be ignored. Because you're going to hear from a teacher that taught JT the year before. You're going to hear about the violence that that teacher experienced at the hands of a kindergarten. And you're going to hear about the report that that teacher made to Dr. Parker in that year. And that Dr. Parker's response was blank stare, look back down, do nothing. The same response she had at 11:45 a.m. on January 6, 2023. But that warning was not the only warning. At 12:20, a reading specialist tells Dr. Parker that she thinks maybe JT has a firearm. She says maybe it's a toy, maybe it's real, I don't know. She thinks JT has a firearm. She says, I'm going to search his backpack. Dr. Parker really doesn't reply to her, but she goes and searches the backpack. Doesn't find anything in the backpack. Meanwhile, there are some concerning observations that are happening on the playground with JT. And you'll learn why teachers and counselors then come to expect that JT has taken that firearm out of his bag and put it into his coat and is carrying it around on a playground full of elementary age students at Richneck Elementary School. They fear that he showed it to another brave student, who then reported, young RR reported exactly what he had seen to a teacher. He was terrified, understandably shaking, crying when he reported what he'd seen. At 12:30, that reading specialist goes back to Dr. Parker and says, I think he has the gun in his jacket. Do nothing. His mom will be here soon, she says. I can only imagine how that made RR feel. But around 1 p.m., a counselor goes to Dr. Parker and says, I want to search the child. Can I search his person? She says no. Mom will be here soon. For over an hour, multiple people went to Dr. Parker and told her there was an armed child at an elementary school running around with, interacting with, children in the classroom, children on the playground, children in the hallways. Multiple warnings brought directly to her. She says, do nothing. Does she say, search the child? No. Does she say, call the police, or does she call the police? No. Does she remove the child from the classroom and separate it? No. She didn't even get up from her desk. She didn't even leave her office. Warning after warning after warning, she did nothing. The crisis in this case did not begin with the firing of a gun. The crisis in this case began at 11:45 a.m. when Ms. Zwerner initially warned Dr. Parker that there was a problem. That was the moment Dr. Parker should have left the office and investigated what was going on. There is a moment that will be described to you by a witness on the stand this morning, where after all that she now knows, all the suspicions that she's now heard, and repeatedly she's heard people that Ms. Kovac and others are going and telling Dr. Parker, she sees JT in the classroom wearing a big coat. She's nervous, and if in an instant she sees him pull out that gun and aim it directly at her face. And before she has a chance to do anything but raise her hand up, JT fires that weapon. It hits Miss Zwerner. At the moment that he fires that weapon, there are 19 children. Right there. And that's why I tell you that this case is not about Miss Zwerner. This case is about the 19 children whose lives were endangered in that moment, but in the moments before as well. Those children were, some of them, between the gun and Miss Zwerner. Some of them, a slight movement of the gun could have hit a child instead of Miss Zwerner. They're right there. Some standing shoulder to shoulder with the shooter. All of them, you'll learn, watched as their teacher clutched her chest and bled before these children, screaming in horror, ran across the hallway to another teacher's classroom, and Miss Zwerner ran to the office and collapsed on the floor. Where, at that point, was Dr. Parker? She had locked herself down in her office. Was the school on lockdown? Not yet. Still no. But a few minutes after Miss Zwerner enters the room, a receptionist, Miss Olivia, does finally put the school on lockdown. I commend her for doing it. She should have had it. And it was too little too late. Back in Miss Zwerner's classroom, Miss Kovac has shown up, the reading specialist I told you about earlier. She knows JT. She knows his history. And when she heard that gunshot, she knew exactly what happened. And she went straight into that classroom. She found in that classroom the gun lying on the floor. You'll learn that that gun contains 7 rounds, one of which, 7 rounds plus one that was jammed in the action of the firearm. So 8 that was unspent. Amy Kovac enters that room and she just puts JT in a bear hug as she calls 911. She holds that child there until police arrive. She will tell you that that whole time she was saying, he was cursing. He was saying, explaining that he shot his teacher. And she was saying, like the consummate faculty teacher she is, don't use that bad language, you know better. She's just doing the best she can to control the situation alone in a classroom where a teacher has just been shot. Ms. Kovac, the reading specialist, also the one who searched the book bag after telling Dr. Parker that's what she said. A task that I don't think reading specialists are supposed to do in an emergency. And the reason that I don't think that is because school policy at the time said exactly that. Richneck had adopted a crisis management plan. And that plan required teachers and faculty members to report crisis situations to administrators, and it required administrators to take actions. One such policy from the Newport News Handbook, you'll learn, was that in terms of searching a student, that could only be done by an administrator or a school security officer. And at the time of this shooting, there was no school security officer at this building. They shared their security officer with another building, and so the security officer was at the other school. So at the moment of this crisis, there were exactly two people in the building who had the authority under the policy to take action. And those two people were the principal, Ms. Newton, and the assistant principal, Dr. Parker. But let me remind you of how I started today. There was only one person that had both the knowledge of the ongoing crisis and the authority to act. While Ms. Newton, the principal, certainly had the authority to act, she had no idea about any of this. Because Dr. Parker, nor anyone else, bothered to tell her. Ms. Newton, you'll learn, didn't get any of these suspicions that day. She didn't know any of this was happening until there was a gunshot. So she had authority, but no knowledge that there was a problem. It's only Dr. Parker that had both of those things. When you hear from these faculty members, they will tell you that they wish they had violated the policy. In hindsight, there'll be no question. They regret it. They regret following Newport News policy. They will tell you to a person that they wish they had just searched the kid and gotten the gun, or they wish they had just called the police. That's what they say in hindsight. And you know what? I would bet that Dr. Parker also wishes she had done differently. I do. But here's the difference. The policies that were in place enabled, in fact required, Dr. Parker to act. The teachers, on the other hand, and faculty, if they were to act, they'd be acting against the policies that were in place that day. And that is a significant difference. There was only one person in the school that day that had both the authority to act and the knowledge of an ongoing crisis. And that person, you'll see, was Dr. Parker. Many people knew the crisis had begun. Two people had the authority to do something about it, but only one person had both. During the course of this trial, we are going to mention a lot of initials. We're not saying the names of the children because we don't want to put their names out there to let this be their story forever. We're asking everyone that testifies, and all of the personnel will definitely be using initials. I say that because that's going to be a lot of initials. The judge talked to you about taking notes earlier, and it is your choice. These will be distributed to those who wish to take notes here in a few moments. Let me encourage you that almost all of the important evidence in this case is going to come out piece by piece by piece, puzzle, little detail by little detail, from several witnesses who will take the stand and testify. And when you go back to deliberate at the end of all of this, all you'll have is your memory and your notes to help refresh you. You won't be able to have testimony read back to you, as the court pointed out, and often I've had the experience of jurors deciding to ask a question, which is, what did so-and-so say in their testimony? And they're always told by the judge, we can't answer that question. You have to rely on your own memory. And so I'm just giving you that heads up. We're going to be throwing a lot of initials at you, a lot of details at you. And when the judge instructs you on the law at the end of this process, you'll have to remember all those details in order to decide this case. So I do ask you to really pay attention to the witnesses, and I suggest that you take notes to help refresh your own memory, because at the end you will have heard a lot from a lot of jurors. January 6, 2023. 20 students went into Ms. Zwerner's classroom. And their lives were forever changed. The trauma that they experienced is unspeakable, and you will hear from some of the parents about that trauma. That shouldn't happen. And the one person who had both the authority and the knowledge that a crisis was ongoing is the